Hello and welcome to the RPO Leadership Forum, a webinar program brought to you by the Recruitment Process Outsourcing Association. I'm Lamis Abu-Rama, CEO of the RPO Association and host of this webinar program. Today, I'm excited to present one of my favorite content, a story of success and likely challenges of talent acquisition between RPOA Gold Member, ZRG Embedded Recruiting, and their client, Symbotic. To allow us to learn more about these companies and their partnership story, I'm honored to introduce our panelists for this webinar. First up, Alex McGrane is Director of Talent Acquisition for Operations and TA Systems at Symbotic. Martha Bradley is Director of Talent Acquisition, Tech Recruiting at Symbotic, and Matt Curbett, President of ZRG Embedded Recruiting. So welcome, Matt. Why don't we take 30 seconds or so and introduce yourself, and we'll do the same for the other panelists.
Thanks, Lamise. Lovely to be here. Really appreciate you hosting this webinar. We're going to make this a fun, interesting, thoughtful conversation. My background is 30 years in the talent space, so 10 years tech consulting, 10 years executive search, and now 10 plus years in RPO. Love building tech companies and love sort of partnering with innovators. And have been very fortunate to know Martha now for, I think we were catching up earlier, over 10 years across 3 companies. So super excited for the conversation. Thank you.
And Martha, welcome. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me. I've enjoyed partnering with Matt all these years. And of course, joining Alex on doing anything is really fun. So I have also been in the recruiting space for many years, predominantly with technology companies. And one of the stressors that we have is building strong teams and finding prospects for our hiring leaders to be able to build those strong teams. So I'm excited to talk to this group today about some of the solutions that Matt has offered to us. But this is right up my alley. I love it. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you, and welcome. Alex, how about yourself?
Yes, hi everybody. Excited to be here as well. So I echo Matt and Martha. I've been in the recruiting space my whole career as well, mostly supporting the operations organization and then process tools and systems. So ZRG has been an amazing partner with us since we've been here. So excited to talk through that with this collective group.
Wonderful, and welcome to you as well, Alex. So Matt, I'll turn it to you to help us understand what to expect from this conversation, and kick it off, please. Go ahead.
Great, thanks, Lamise. So the goal here is we have sort of half an hour, and we're going to try and break the half an hour into various sections, probably 6 different sections. Let's talk about the origin story, how we started working together. Let's talk about sort of how we build the engine for scale. Then we'll talk about some pivots and lessons and surprises. Maybe talk about what's next in great partnerships. And I think what's most important about this conversation is that it's around a partnership that is going through sort of fairly dramatic growth periods. And there's sort of 3 parts of this story, 3 chapters. You've got the growth of Symbotic, which is just a remarkable leader in warehouse automation globally, and their innovation around robotics and AI. You've got the growth trajectory of Hub, which was then acquired by ZRG. And then thirdly, you've got a growth story about going from a vendor to a strategic partner. So all of these 3 things happening simultaneously, like how do you possibly puzzle this together, is what I'm hoping the 3 of us are going to talk about. So that's the plan. If we jump into origin story, so Hub, before we were acquired by ZRG, the company was called Hub, was already working with Symbotic when I think Martha and Alex joined the company. So why don't we start, Martha, with like, what was the situation when you joined Symbotic? And why did you stick with us?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Matt. Both Alex and I joined with our Vice President of Talent, Pavi, right around the same time, 3 years ago. And it was just a couple of months before the company was set to go public, and they had been really an R&D and testing site for this amazing, innovative warehouse automation project. And a lot of the work that talent teams traditionally do were being done by a couple of recruiters, a couple of contractors, like those that Hub had provided. But it was time for some real significant growth. So they bought the big guns in, me and Alex, to start building our teams, hiring folks, and helping our hiring managers and business leaders start to build their orgs. But there were only a couple of recruiters, a very small one-person campus team, and the support we were getting from the Hub folks was fantastic. But it was a time that Symbotic really needed to put some rigor around what's the best practice, how do we find top talent, and how do we bring in the right people at the right time for the right org. And that's sort of what we were facing when we came in here. And quite honestly, I was a little surprised. It was harder than I thought it was going to be. And it's been really fun to be here.
Alex, any thoughts on that before we jump into sort of the going from the origin story to sort of how you build the engine?
Yeah, I mean, to echo what Martha said, right? We joined, and as soon as we went public, the rapid pace came headwinds at us, right? We had to really identify how we were going to support those needs relatively quickly, and that's where we really started to partner with Hub and now ZRG, right, to build that foundation and that partnership for our TA team.
So let's go to that chapter. So you're going through an IPO. And so the fundamental trajectory of the business is changing, the rigor around the business is changing. So how did that change the partnership you needed from Hub at the same time as Hub was going through a process of being acquired by ZRG? So it's a public company and now a PE company. So maybe Alex, if you could help me out first, like how did your needs change?
Yeah, it changed with, we didn't just need extra hands and people to push candidates through the process, right? We really needed recruiters and a team that was going to take the time to understand our culture, understand the long-term vision, want to become embedded in our Symbotic processes. And that's where, as Martha and I started to build the relationship and the conversations with Hub, that's where that really came to light, right? In those early days is we understood quickly that this was going to be a partnership, not just a transactional service for us. So that was really the beginning of us building that partnership and identifying how can we really have that transparency of communication of what the needs are for Symbotic, and knowing that Hub was going to be there to support that and help us find the right recruiting talent to then help us find the right top talent for our business and our organization.
Fantastic. Love it. Well, now, what about Martha? Do you mind, in your opinion, what is the difference between sort of a vendor and a built-in partner? And how did you go from one to the other?
Are you asking about like an agency vendor?
How do you go when you're a company like Symbotic going through an IPO and growing? How do you take a relationship that's a traditional vendor and it turns into a built-in partnership where there's that layer of trust that starts to get built as you go through trials and mistakes and victories?
Well, I have the advantage of working with Hub, now ZRG, through my last 3 companies. So I already had the partnership with the folks at Hub, but each time we have made that transition with a new company, particularly here at Symbotic, we look at a vendor to just send some resumes over. We'll take a look at them. We'll bring them through the whole process. With Hub, we invite them to bring a recruiter into our world and learn right alongside of the recruiting team that might be part of the Symbotic, full-time employees. But we invite them to come and join and be part of the team, feel the joys, feel the challenges, feel the, and become actually a partner to not just me and to Alex, but to our hiring leaders, to our other recruiters. I mean, it's sort of a seamless, they're not just shoving candidates at us, they are actually helping us to build the company. And that is like a really big difference. When somebody is, sometimes in vendor or agency world, it's eat what you kill, right? So we're just gonna send a whole bunch of resumes and see what sticks. But that was not the model for Hub, because the partnership was built on you lending us excellent talent to help us build this. It wasn't, in the model of success is not you get commissioned on, every person that you fill, but you are actually part of our team. So that relationship and the folks that you've brought to us really wanted to be part of a team as opposed to just flinging resumes. So does that answer your question?
It does beautifully. And it's funny how when you work so closely, like we start to get a sense of, what is the right person for Symbotic. And so it just gets better over time. But one thing I would love to dive on, if you don't mind, Martha, for a second, is how did your needs change over time? And how were we able to adapt to those needs? Because I think as companies go through, for you an IPO, for us a private equity transaction, moving from a vendor to a strategic partner, like were there any services you needed that we historically didn't offer that we had to bring in?
Yes, actually, one of the greatest ads, if I would, is like Alex and I both, and Pavi and some of the members of our team both come from a large network of top recruiters in the area, but the company itself wasn't quite ready to bring on a huge full-time employee group, and pay, like we didn't know, we needed to remain flexible. So while we had a good network of folks that we wanted to be working with again, we needed a partner or a solution to help sort of payroll them, if you will, so that they could join us, could help us. And when I was talking to you and to Lori about how that might work, you came up with a solution which helped our recruiters come on board and be payrolled through ZRG Hub as part of our team here at Symbotic. And that has been a huge help so that we could take talent that we need, continue to remain flexible, or take talent that we knew and could trust, continue to remain flexible, and in some cases just wait until we could convert them to full-time, or maybe in some cases you sent them off to somebody else if we didn't need them. So that flexibility has really been critical and a big part of our success.
Yeah, I think of the relationship, the partnership as it's grown, it's just us trying to come up with solutions that meet your needs, and help in any way, shape, or form. Sometimes completely crazy and out of the box, but if that's what you need to build Symbotic, then we're going to be there to help you. But in stages of growth, right, there's always roadblocks and there's always speed bumps and stuff like that comes along. Alex, do you have any stories or any thoughts about any speed bumps or any issues we've had that we've sort of solved together as a team, where you look back and how that relationship transitioned stronger through sticky times?
Yeah. And to give some context to our listeners too, because we keep talking about this rapid, fast growth company that we're in, right? I want to kind of speak to that here for a second, because I think that helps tell the story. When Martha and I started, before we went public, we had about 500 employees. We're almost at about 2,000 right now. When we started, we only had 5 sites. We now have over 30 sites that are live, and we did that within a 3-year period. So it has been immensely fast paced and high growth from a hiring perspective, and just for our operations team of growing our sites, and the recruiters that we brought in through ZRG Hub helped us do that, right? Like that's the big story to this too. So I just wanted to add that context, because we keep speaking about it, so people had some awareness of what that actually meant for Symbotic. And then when you think of the kind of the challenges or the directions, right? I think one of the biggest pieces was recruiters are still people. They still have to be the right fit. They still have to understand the culture and the environment and have the right skill set. And the biggest thing that we did in the learning was, in the very beginning with ZRG Hub, we met on a weekly basis, right? We had open and transparent conversations with each other of, what good talent looks like from a recruiter perspective, what's going to fit within our processes and procedures and how someone needs to operate, right? So I think that was one of, when I was reflecting back, one of the biggest learnings and the best things that we did was really start early and having that open line and of dialogue and rigor around the how and the when. We did that too.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? You find that even through wins or losses, so long as you treat it transparently, ethically, honestly, like any situation can build trust. Any situation, you can turn anything into a win by being an honest, ethical partner. And I think that's quite unusual. It almost doesn't exist in the vendor world, but it's the most important thing in the partnership world.
I might add on to that and say the other value add with ZRG is if Alex and I had specific hopes how somebody might improve, that we could give that feedback to our account manager and they could do some careful coaching, whether it was one of the employees that they were payrolling or one of the contractors that you had introduced directly. And I really felt like there was that partnership too, so that we could help them be successful, but maybe not have to give the direct feedback. Because I only like to say nice things. I don't like to say like really hard things to people.
Yeah, we'll take care of the hard stuff. But it's a good point, right? Because sometimes in our business, there are these invisible parts of the process or the delivery that people skip over. But sometimes it's those invisible project management, skill optimization, delivery optimization, keeping a close eye on the KPIs. Like that can be the most powerful stuff. You may not visualize it so much, but it's that invisible service partnership can add so much value. But Alex, to what you said though, I think the story of Symbotic is just a truly remarkable 5 years, right? I mean, emerging as the leader in warehouse automation at a point where warehouse and supply chain and manufacturing is exploding in this sort of onshoring era is just a fabulous story. So it's an honor to be a part of that. What about sort of critical lessons you have for maybe other companies who might be looking at using a firm like ours? Martha, you want to grab on that one?
Part of my career in recruiting included agency recruiting. It included being part of a RPO, if you would, because I was like a gun for hire where I would go on site and do internal recruiting for a company. And it's also been a technology recruiting leader. So I understood the value of the service that a company like ZRG can offer. But I think that for anybody who's never tried it, first of all, it's going to really lighten your load because of the keen focus that an RPO brings. You know, they are in market, but not like sending a ton of resumes that are grueling to look at and hard to discern, you know, if somebody is actually the right fit. They've done the pre-vetting because they're part of the team. They understand all of that. So if you've never tried this model, like we still use agency for some of our roles. We have to use agency for some of our, you know, hard to fill permanent roles and go to companies that are experts. This is the team that we use at ZRG really is helping us build our team, the recruiting team. And that's the difference. So we, you know, even our RPO people will sometimes work with agencies because the role is so hard. So they are just sitting in a seat or sitting remotely, contributing at the same level that a recruiter who might be a full-time employee. And I would suggest that it's a great option. It provides flexibility. It's probably much more cost effective because you might get, you know, 20 or 30 hires out of a really strong recruiter on an annual basis. And the fees that are tied to that can be astronomical if you're paying a contingency fee. So the cost and the value is really important. So I would say it's definitely worth investigating, and I'm a huge proponent of it. So hope that answers your question.
Oh, perfect. Lovely. Thank you very much, Martha. Alex, what about you? Less about RPO or embedded, but more just a general advice about working with a partner.
Yeah, you have to invest in the time, right? Just like anything, you're gonna most likely do a lot of work on the front end to say, is this the partner that we potentially want to work with, and what are those reasons that we've identified, ZRG as that partner. But then once they're there and they are your partner, you still have to invest in that partnership, right? And I think it's really being thoughtful too that might evolve over time, right? Our partnership has evolved over time over these past 3 years. It started heavy with bringing us recruiters to help us support from a volume perspective, because we were going every different direction, and we needed the support. And then it turned into Martha's point, well, we have a whole network of people. How can we partner with you to bring that network to us, right? If we're not going to bring them on full time. And then it turned into, I want to call this out, right? We were able to even branch ZRG into other parts of our operations organization, and payroll different individuals that were a little bit more senior, and we needed to think a little bit differently, right? So I think it's then being really thoughtful along the journey of the partnership of really what that looks like. But again, it goes back into investing in the time, having that open dialogue of communication, is really key.
Doesn't it feel like the relationship changing and evolving over time is almost by definition of a requirement of a good partnership, right? Like if it stayed the same, it almost isn't a partnership anymore, because everything is fluid, everything is changing, we're changing, you're changing, therefore sort of adapting and evolving is essentially a piece of a good partnership.
Great.
Martha, any additional thoughts? Because we've done a really brilliant job, but we're sort of coming up to half an hour pretty quickly.
Thoughts on what? I have thoughts all the time.
Let me tee you up.
I don't know what you mean, Matt, but I'm gonna.
I'm going to tee you up then. So because we've been friends for years, and I appreciate you as great people, appreciate you as great partners, appreciate you as a dear friend. Give me one word. How would you describe the partnership between Symbotic and ZRG Embedded?
I thought about this because you gave me a pre-ask, so I'm not going to say.
Go.
Well, let me think. I was thinking dynamic.
Yeah,
it's the word that kind of came to mind for me.
I love that one. That's a good one. Alex, what about you?
I came up with integrated.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's
I think
really
you've been
interesting.
really part of a foundation, right, of our kind of TA team and partnership. So, look, as you guys have really integrated into our business.
Dynamic and integrated. I love those two. That's fabulous. Well, thank you so much. Lemise, any additional thoughts or anything that I missed in this, just lovely conversation with two fabulous partners?
You know what? I was listening attentively, and I have a different hat than Matt, as we provide all these educational content for a broader audience of RPO buyers, providers. It's an entire ecosystem. You touched on a lot of the questions that I was hoping to hear. Sounds in terms of the partnership. Why I got Matt is it evolved. Just for clarity, was Hub, was that the first RPO that Symbotic worked with?
Wow, what a good question. I think so.
The first generation, I was trying to figure out.
I think so. I think it was. I think we first started working with Symbotic, quite a while before Martha and Alex joined, but it was a situation that they were going through. It was early stage of the business and sort of pivoting and adjusting the product to the market early on, and therefore hiring was inconsistent but very targeted. So that's how we got involved. And then it was about the time that's when sort of there was really just perfect product market fit. And so then the dynamism changed from sort of pivoting and adjusting to scaling and delivery. And I think, Martha, correct me if I'm wrong, that was when you and Alex sort of really joined, like, okay, now we're going on a run. This is pre-IPO, scaling, global, to become the leader. Is that right, Martha?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And one of the pivots that we had to adjust to as a whole team is the talent transformation. And we needed to be looking for top talent in many cases, PhDs in robotics, you know, some of the hardest talent to find. And for Alex, people that were willing to travel and relocate to some of the most remote places in the world or in the country to run a facility. And so the ZRG partnership, like they were able to pivot with us, you know, as we made those changes. The ZRG team helped us get there too. So.
You know, Alex, maybe for a second, could you just touch on, like, because of Symbotic, because it's warehouse automation, robotics, AI, just describe some of the hiring dynamics. Like, you need to deploy a warehouse system in one state versus a different state versus 3 simultaneously. Like, there's so many moving parts, and how you do hiring for that.
Yeah, so we support from an operations perspective and a hiring perspective, right? We don't physically do any of the construction ourselves, but we have, you know, an installation, project management, commissioning team that kind of oversees a lot of the actual subcontractors that do the work within our customers' facilities. And I think a good call out too is these are not our distribution centers, right? We're going into our customers' distribution centers like a Walmart, and we're putting our robotics technology, the structure, the bots that are moving around, you know, we're putting those in existing DCs across the US network for various different customers. So we're also a guest in these facilities and kind of running their day-to-day operations. So from an ops side, right, we're really supporting kind of the front end from the install all the way through to when they're fully up and operational, because then we do hire people to operate and help operate the technology at those sites as well. So then we're embedded from a day-to-day with our customers also.
So that's complex, doing one warehouse. How many do you have?
We now have over 30, and we're entering into Mexico as we speak as well, where we're launching 2 sites there.
So imagine the hiring talent, the talent challenges, deploying 30 warehouses over a period of, well, 3-4 years, while post-IPO, massive scaling, innovation, transformation simultaneously. Like, it's a huge, complex, lots of moving
It's been
parts.
a fun journey. And we're still on it.
Here's a little secret. Alex's job is so much harder than mine.
I was going to say you have exciting jobs, all of you. Matt, you teach us towards metrics and numbers, so it's good that we were talking about warehouse and the number and volume. So in terms of how you assess the partnership, what kind of KPIs, metrics do you look at? And Matt, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's a great question. So on this, there are a lot of sort of inside baseball math that we probably can't or shouldn't disclose on this webinar. But basically, I think we look at, Martha, keep me honest here, but the KPIs, there's really 2 trajectories around KPIs. There's SLAs that are required, individual projects, numbers of hires, pipeline requirements, and that's looked at. But then there's a trust, the softer side of a partnership, of how you approach solutions, how you flex the solution, how you're transparent with pricing to make the partnership work. But I think, Martha, maybe over to you. Again, on this webinar, we're really not going to get into like the core math of what a pipeline looks like. But generally, any thoughts from you on that one?
On how we measure success? Yeah. I mean, there are traditional metrics that every recruiter knows, you know, we need to get to, but we also, because of, at least in the tech side, because we know that there are, you know, finding these PhDs or finding these top simulation robotics engineers is very difficult. We also slide down to how many offers were extended, or how many candidate profiles were you able to get to a hiring manager, how many people were willing to talk to you. So all the measurements are part of the reporting that we do upstream. And we include the contract recruiters, our hub partners, in those metrics, and they each have their own. And the other challenge that we have is, you know, as far as the top talent, you know, we're competing against some really cool companies too, and we need those all of our recruiting team to really be unafraid or confident or be capable of telling the story and getting people excited. So communication is a big part of what we train on and teach, and, you know, like how to do that outreach and get people excited to be here. But all of those things are things that we measure for success.
But Lamese, there's one thing I particularly enjoy about the partnership with Martha and Alex with Symbotic is that those KPIs are consistent through the internal team as our team. So there isn't a separation. There isn't a one set of rules for one vendor and one set of rules for an internal team. It's unified, which I think produces much better outcoming results. But Alex, Martha, any thoughts on that?
I think it help builds one team, right? And I think that's kind of what we talked about from the beginning is we want to make sure there's that team cohesion and partnership and collaboration. So many times our recruiters have to work together too on various projects and initiatives or finding talent. So to have that consistency is really important.
And
Thank you.
I do a one-on-one with every person that's sent over to us from Hub, just like I do full-time employees, on a weekly basis, sometimes every other week, depending on what the role is, sourcers or recruiter. But like when I have a conversation with them, I don't think of them as, oh, you're just like a part-time contractor. It's like they are part of our team. And
yeah, I think really that's like so important for integration, seamless operations. Like I don't think it's focused enough, Lamese, in terms of a key element of a great partnership.
Yeah, no, you all answered the question exceptionally well. I think what we want to highlight is the partnership is strategic, and that's differentiation also between working with an RPO partner versus agencies and other type of recruitings. You have clarity around what these metrics are and the alignment between internal metrics versus what you have with embedded that had good notes. I also appreciate it, and Matt, you teed that very well. One of the key takeaways we want to leave the audience with is why should you work with an RPO provider? What are the benefits? And Martha talked about flexibility, talked about the savings, talked about just that experience of working with an RPO. It feels integrated, to use Alex's word, versus it's part of the team. So you all made a great case, and I appreciate all the insights. I understand Symbotic is a public company, so usually there's a lot of red tape when you speak on a webinar like this. And you guys, I appreciate you coming on the RPOA webinar program and sharing this great story about how working with an RPO partner is a great decision, especially in this talent environment that we work with. With the minute or so we have left, if anyone from our audience have questions, you're welcome to ask them for our panelists as well. And anything else, Matt, that you wanted to close with?
I mean, honestly, I think we've done a great job talking about the mechanics of a relationship, but also just sometimes the friendships that you develop. Like Martha and I have built a friendship up over 3 companies, can sometimes be the best thing that come out of these partnerships that vendors turn into partnership, turn into friends. It's fabulous.
Yeah, that's a key takeaway. The association has been doing an RPO trend study for the last 3 years. And when we ask RPO buyer about what's their top reason for working with a provider or leaving a provider, it's typically that relationship is what you're talking about, Matt. That is a big, important factor.
I'm hoping Martha agrees.
Yeah, I was going to say, Alex is much nicer than me, so continue to develop a relationship, because she's going to go on to other companies at some point in her career too. So she's smarter and nicer.
That's always with the nice comments.
Isn't that
all
Alex?
the same
That's
thing.
the Martha sort of self-deprecating sense of humor we love.
She's the best. She's the best.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for again coming on the RPOA webinar program. Appreciate your input and your insights. And Matt, thank you so much for bringing your partner on the program as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Martha. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks for the invite. Fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.